Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of announcements and thank yous this evening. Dennis and I have attended many of the back-to-school nights that have occurred this year, 5 so far. And we heard many positive comments from our parents for how well our teachers and our administrators prepared for those evenings. Rampo Ridge is tomorrow evening at 6:45, and we anticipate that to be an equal success as the others, but we both wanted to extend our appreciation to our teachers and to our administrators for those evenings for our parents. We have some athletic season highlights I'd like to just bring to everyone's attention. Boys soccer is undefeated with a record of 6-0. Cross-country medalists will be at the Wild Safari Invitational on Saturday, September 24th. Our football record is 3-0. Girls soccer record is 5-1-1. Girls tennis team and first singles player Lauren Stern have qualified for the state tournament to be held on Saturday, October 8th. Volleyball has a record of 6-3. Tabitha Paul leads the team in kills. The JV volleyball team raised also over $600 for cystic fibrosis on Mahwah Day. So congratulations to all of our student athletes and our coaches for their leadership. That's it.
Thank you.
Just one item to report on, and that's regarding the November election. Just a reminder that the election is scheduled for Tuesday, November 8th. The Board of Education accepted, nominating petitions were due at the county office by July 25th. There were 4 petitions that were submitted. However, there was one candidate who did withdraw within the allowable time frame. So on the ballot for November, there will only be 3 names listed, so the 3 candidates who are still running. And that's my little update.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bear.
Sure. Next week we will be conducting our interviews for our tenure track position for Supervisor of Science and Practical Art. Our goal is to interview 10 candidates and hopefully have someone recommended to you for board approval by the end of October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this evening I would like to mention 2 students. A junior, Elise Kron-Bichler, was named Bergen County Junior Commissioner on the Status of Women. Every year, the Bergen County Commission on the Status of Women invites all high schools in Bergen County to nominate one young woman from the current junior class as a junior commissioner. A panel of judges evaluates the applications and selects the young woman with exceptional academic and leadership qualities to be appointed by the Board of Chosen Freeholders and Dr. Schoen to serve for 1-year term. During this term, the junior commissioners will participate in the activities of the Bergen County Commission on the Status of Women and special community service projects for their choosing. We are pleased to announce the Bergen County Commission on the Status of Women Junior Commissioners for 2016-2017 selected junior Elise Kron-Bichler from the Mahwah High School class of 2018. So congratulations to Elise. And we have a rising scholar senior. Thank you. Senior Isabel Mendez has been recognized as the 2016-17 National Hispanic Scholar. Each year, the National Hispanic Recognition Program honors more than 5,000 academically outstanding students from more than 250,000 Hispanic Latino juniors who take the PSAT and the NMSQT. To be eligible, students must be at least 1/4 Hispanic Latino based on the program's definition and achieve a minimum score on their tests for the region. The students with a cumulative junior year grade point average of 3.5 or higher are designated as scholars. So we congratulate Isabel for receiving this honor. And that is all that I have this evening. Do we have any board committee reports this evening?
From policy, we have 15I, which is first reading of policies and regulations. There are a handful of them there. They're all mandatory, mostly citation changes and nothing exciting.
Thank you.
I can just update on
Yep.
just a fast update on negotiations. We're sort of counting the days to the release by the fact finder of the report, and as we said the last session, as soon as we have that report, we'll study it in committee and see if there are ideas or concepts that we haven't been able to come up with jointly, and get back to work on the next proposal.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We have a moment for board member remarks or additional comments on any other non-agenda items. Anyone have any comments? Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to have a motion to move old business, minutes from old last, Mr. D'Angelo and second.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Ms. Conoco.
Yes.
Mr. Salderini.
Yes.
Ms. Curry.
Abstain.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. Now I'd like to take new business, A through R, and we're going to be tabling resolution 15O. May I have a motion to move this? Mr. D'Angelo and Mr. Denise seconds. And any comments? Members, no. Everyone okay? All right, would you like to take it?
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Ms. Conoco.
Yes.
Mr. Salderini.
Yes.
Ms. Curry.
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. Okay, next, we're going to take new business, A through H. Have a motion to move that, please. Mr. D'Angelo and Ms. Conoco, seconds. Any discussion on any of those items? Yes, please.
Say thank you to the volunteer coach. We love volunteers.
Yes. Oh, and I'd like to also mention thank you to all the volunteers who are volunteering within our school system. Thank you very much, we appreciate it.
Roll call. Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Ms. Conoco.
Yes.
Mr. Salderini.
Yes.
Ms. Curry.
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, this portion is public questions or comments. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes, so if you'd like to come on up to the microphone.
Sorry about before.
No, that's okay.
Don't know the order. I'm new to these things.
That's fine, jump right in.
Okay. My name is Frank Manziano. My address is 69 Owino Road. The reason I'm new to these things is because I've delegated my power and my money to you to solve these problems. I'm extremely unhappy with the fact that no progress has been made with respect to putting together a contract for the teachers. Okay? Just a couple points. I come to this meeting from a multiple variety of perspectives. I am a parent with a student in the system. I am a full-time teacher in another district. Actually untenured, so I feel like I'm taking a little bit of risk, but that's okay. I'm here to talk to you guys because as a financial person, I understand it's very important right now to be very careful with the finances. Every time I ask somebody, both on the union side, but also on the school side, I don't seem to get an answer except go to the public website, okay? Again, I've delegated to you guys to do the work for us, and it's not getting done. There is a cost. I'm an economics teacher, okay? There is an opportunity cost in not getting this done, and it's bad morale at the school. I think that we have a good school system and that the teachers are trying, and I'm not here to say that it's all one-sided. But the fact that a contract has not been put together is a big problem as far as I'm concerned, and it is creating costs in our system. I have a modest proposal. You guys asked me to look at the website and come up with the numbers, so I did. They're not going to be perfect, okay? The way I see it, the town has $60 million in terms of its budget in total, of which about $35 million, I believe, goes to the school, of which about $24 million goes to the teachers and all of the support staff. So, the average Bergen County town gets about 2.5% increase. The last time they did the contract, that's about what we got in my town. That would mean approximately $700,000 would go to the teachers and support staff if you guys were to do just simply what the average does. I don't know why you don't do that, but you haven't done that, okay? Now, I was looking at some things here as well. I noticed that there's $10 million in terms of benefits, that's for healthcare, mostly I believe, of which I understand the teachers are responsible for about 1/3 of that, which means basically they're paying about $5 million a year, okay? I asked these questions of people who are involved at the board level, and I know you're not paid for, so I understand that. But I asked teachers, I asked union representatives, I never get a straight answer. I was told, you know, go to the website. So I'm doing my own work. I'm sure it's not perfect. I understand that the healthcare costs are going up by about 10%. So the contribution for the teachers is probably going to be 10% off of that $5 million that they're putting in, approximately $500,000. So it comes as no surprise to me that all across our district, in our counties, okay, they're getting about a 2–2.5% raise because that's about equal, okay, to what the healthcare is going to go up to. All right, so to do less than 2.5%, basically, most teachers probably feel like you're stiffing them because they're actually going to take home less than before. I get that. Okay, I get that. I don't know why the rest of our townspeople don't get that, but it's pretty hard to find out. I am a teacher. I've got 105 kids. Teachers work hard, okay? I come from the private sector, all right? I understand what the private sector is, and I understand what the public sector is too. And basically, I'm a little bit, as you can probably tell, a little bit annoyed because I have to come here tonight and talk to you about this. This is your job, not mine. This should have been done. There's no reason why it hasn't been done yet. There's no reason why you can't do it tonight. There's no reason why you have to pay some consultant a lot of money to do it for you, okay? Now, it's very simple, okay? It's really very simple. The way I see it in Mahwah here, it helps the property values. I'm not saying give everything to the teachers. You need to keep it tight, okay? But education is a public good. I propose to you a 3% increase effective immediately, no retro, no going back, no nothing like that. The teachers back here, I didn't talk to them. They may not like this. They may want more, okay? They're only going to get basically about 1% more than they're getting right now. They're going to be made whole and they're going to get a little bit of a gain just like most of us in the private sector. Now, I'd like you to do this tonight, okay? I'd like you to do it tonight. And quite frankly, when I was in the private sector, I was an equal opportunity employer. I'm also an equal opportunity fire. And if this can't get done, I'm going to propose that the Mahwah townspeople vote against everybody in the board out, equally, because you're not getting it done. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Good night.
Evelyn Slockbrow, 43 Thunderhead Place. I just wanted to bring to your attention that I went out to the New Jersey Department of Education website. I went out to the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2015, because 2016 is not there yet. And on the district funds, governmental activities, Table 3, information about expenditures by function, employee benefits decreased by 2.68%. from the 2013-2014 school year to the 2014-2015 school year. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alison Colucci. I live at 28 Divine Drive in Mahwah. I have a second grader who goes to Lenape Meadows School, and I have a fifth grader who goes to our Joyce Kilmer School. I'm here with many hats. The first hat I'm wearing tonight is as a parent, and I would like to publicly acknowledge and appreciate all of the teachers that have been working without a contract since June of 2015. That means they haven't had a raise since June of 2015. I was not here this summer in the schools. I was here for a few times because I do some committee work for the HSOs. I saw teachers in this school, not here obviously, but in Lenape Meadows and Joyce Kilmer School, working in the summer when it is not even a contractual time, doing things for our kids. I also know that as a teacher myself, we don't go into it for the money. We go into it because we love to learn and we love to see kids that love to learn. We don't go in at 8:22 and leave at 3:22. I'm sure many of you are doing that because that's your contractual
I want to be working on it
dues.
tonight. I got to come here instead. I'd be working for my kids. They're getting hurt because of you guys.
It's my turn now. But I think that even if these people, these men, these women are walking out the door when they're told to, they still have a child on their mind, they still have a child on their heart, and they're probably still doing work at home. So I think we need to realize how much time and effort is put on, even beyond just regular, even if there was a contract going on. And I think until people have someone in their family who's a teacher, they don't actually appreciate it and understand it. So I do for myself and for my kids, and for every other kid, I appreciate your professionalism, that you've been doing this every day that you haven't had a contract, because as teachers, we do it for the kids. The other reason I'm here is as a taxpayer of Mahwah. Obviously, you've all been voted in as by the people of Mahwah. I partly have a question, and that one question is, what is our amount in the reserve fund right now? Can someone just tell me that amount of money that's in the reserve? 'Cause
Right now, the reserve fund has right now, as of the year end, so June 30th, the reserve fund had about $6.5 million in it.
Okay, and what was the most recent amount of money was put into that reserve as of that June 3rd? Is that 1 point something million was put in?
Yeah, there was about $6 million at the end, 1.5 went in.
Okay.
It was also budgeted to have about 1 million taken out, so the ending balance right now is around 6.5.
Okay, so my question is, could any of that money have been used to help settle the teacher's contract? That's my first question. Not sure if you'll have an answer for that, but that is my question, because if it's money that's been taken, as taxpayers have paid that money, could it have been used for that? As we do vote all of you in to represent us as taxpayers, I remember a couple years ago, a lot of money was questioned whether that money could be used for athletic fields. When we're talking about these large amounts of money, I'm not involved in it from your end of it, but when we talk about these large amounts of money, is there a reason why it's not put to referendum? When they're going to spend large amounts of money, or you take these amounts of money and you're putting them away. I know we need the money for a rainy day, but my original question is, could that money have been used to help settle the teacher's contract? I think people would like to know if that could be.
A 1% raise is only about $240K.
So my question is, could that money, any part of that money, instead of the 1.5 that was deposited, be used towards helping to settle the teacher's contract?
So we have historically voted funds into the capital reserve account. Sorry, we've, can you hear me now? Okay, can you hear that? Yes. All right, there we go, okay. So, we have, so let's just talk about the capital reserve budget just for a few seconds since you brought it up,
Sure.
right? So it's been the board's policy over the last 10 or 11 or 12 years to vote excess funds, that is funds that we didn't spend in a budget year, into the capital reserve account. So the amount of money that you see in the capital reserve account now has been built up over a relatively lengthy period of time. That money is basically for, not so much for rainy day things, it's not an emergency fund, it's for maintenance, it's replacement of boilers, roofs, air conditioning units, doors, stuff that isn't terribly sexy, but which is intrinsic to keeping the facilities, at least in our view, in first-class condition and in creating a good working environment and a good educational environment.
Would those have items already been placed in the budget already to be saved for?
Well, so you have a long-term view of the different things that you have to do, and actually in facilities right now, we're working on a presentation for the public so we can show all the different items that are in that plan over a long-term period of time. As Kyle said a moment ago, money goes in, money comes out.
Yes.
And so the view of the board has been that the amounts which have been voted in unanimously each and every year throughout the period that we're discussing, it's good money to have in an account for those sorts of investments. So that money is for those sorts of improvements and repairs. And that's really that's the first answer to your question. As to whether or not that money could have been used to address the contract, it's probably important to recognize that the raises that we've offered in the current proposal that's on the table, which I've said publicly before, but I got told I can't say them anymore, but suffice it to say they're higher than the ones that the gentleman just raised.
Good,
Okay.
then take it. I mean, I don't know why they don't take it.
Please, if you're at the microphone, we would like you to come to
so-
the microphone to speak.
So once we budget for that money, the money is sitting there in an account. Okay, we don't spend the money that we've projected to pay out in raises, and we've never settled a contract and not done retroactive pay.
Right, you have
So-
to by law give the retroactive pay.
No, we don't have to by law, but we've done so by past practice because it's good practice and it makes sense.
I would think so.
So it's not exactly one or the other. It's both accounts are funded, and both sets of monies are available for two different purposes. One purpose is being unsexy stuff like windows and doors, and another purpose to try to provide a meaningful pay raise for the staff. So that's hopefully an answer to your question.
I kind of don't know that my question was answered, because knowing that you didn't have a settled contract, did that full amount need to be put in the capital reserve? Or knowing that you're in this state, you're waiting to get information back from fact finders, that how do you know that that full amount that you're talking about should have been put in there? Is there a way to put that money in somewhere that's almost like a holding tank, shall we say? Or was it even considered before it was placed in that account?
Real quick, my understanding is at the end of the school year, since we're public government, right? At the end of the year, you gotta zero out the books. So the money has to go somewhere at the end of the school year. There's no floating, we can't hold it over. It's gotta go somewhere. And as Chuck said, we have historically, where that money is one of the options is to go to capital reserve. So to answer your question, you can't hold it over and wait.
So when was your last meeting with the MEA to decide? I mean, unfortunately, we know that in the process of government or in the process of things, it takes a long time. Like, when did you go and find out that you were waiting for the fact finders? Was that before June 30th?
Okay, so the fact-finding process is a function of something called the PERC process. So PERC is Public Employee Relations Committee, or I can't remember what the C stands for. Commission, thank you. So that process got started when MEA declared impasse after we failed to come to agreement.
And when was that?
So they declared impasse, I think, back in April of maybe 15.
But I thought their contract ended so you're talking about before their contract had ended for the
Correct.
first time?
So we had started negotiations long before the expiration of the agreement which is passed, in hopes of avoiding exactly what we're presently talking about, okay? So once that process gets started, it follows a very prescribed path. That path, from a timeline perspective, is governed by the availability of fact finders and mediators that are provided by PERC. There are very few of those people.
That we have to wait your turn in order for that to happen.
So you have to wait your turn.
I'm very aware of that.
So we did that. Now, in between that, you're allowed to continue to talk. And that was certainly something that we have remained open to, and we've had informal meetings along the way. And our last meeting, I think, was toward the end of August, okay? So we've been trying. It's not like there hasn't been, at least in my view, good faith on both sides in terms of trying to get to a resolution. Our view of our offer is that it provides a good pay raise for a high-performing district, and it matches up with the pay raises that other high-performing districts have settled to. Our disagreement is on healthcare, and it's not a huge surprise. But right now, our view is that the board pays 78% of the premium, and the total contribution from the MEA is 22%. Those are the facts. That's just the truth of it. So the question is, what is the right balance and mix, and how is that factored into the raises that have been offered? Because we can only raise your taxes by 2% a year. So if I can only raise your taxes by 2% a year, but we have pay raises that are 2.5, 2.7, 2.9, 3, and we have healthcare premiums that are growing.
Wait a minute. Can I ask a question?
Well, let me just finish answering her question.
I just want to finish one thing, and then you can come back in.
Happy to take yours. So we're trying to be mindful of that from a financial standpoint. So those are the dynamics that we're trying to wrestle with.
I certainly am not an educator here in Mahwah. I'm an educator in another Bergen County town. And as the people in this room know, teachers are taking home less and less money because of the legislation that has been passed. We didn't go into education for the money. For years and years, we had benefits that were paid for us, and we didn't have the bigger bonuses. Now the legislation has changed that. I'm going to leave and walk away and let someone else do it, but I'm going to make sure that you're well aware that the dedication of these people, when you're reading off not just the athletes, but the scholars and things like that, those kids have those abilities, but we're also not hearing about the special ed kids. we're also not hearing about those other kids that are working day in and day out, and it's because of the dedicated staff that we have here, the teachers, the support staff, whoever it is. And I just was very curious to see why that much money was put away, knowing the state in which we were at with their contract. So I appreciate
So, I just want to clarify and understand, Jim, I'm an economist guy, I'm not an expert on this, I'm just learning, but I'm doing what I call, what I didn't invent, what economists call rational ignorance, okay? Rational ignorance, I delegate to you guys, I say, do it for me, get it done, we vote for you, we pay you, get it done.
No, that's not
Okay.
correct.
I'm delegating my authority by voting for the Board of Ed. How would you dispute that that's incorrect?
Because you said we pay you.
We pay her, we pay the
Okay, when
super.
you said you,
Not yet.
I
We don't
took
get
that
paid.
to mean.
No, but if you'd like to resign because you're not getting it done, that may be acceptable.
Okay, if you're here to ask a
So the
question,
point
ask
is,
the question.
here's the
We don't
question,
need to get-
okay. Is the board limited to giving a 4% increase since basically the town finances its money? The money that comes in here, about 50% with taxes, and the other 50% they go out and borrow. That's what the budget's been doing. So are you capped to a 2% increase per year?
So we, several years ago, when, short answer, yes, we operate to a hard cap in terms of raising the tax base no more than 2% a year.
The tax base, but how do you finance your projects? You don't finance your projects 100% with the tax base. You finance it historically, again, Manziano, you don't know anything, look on the website. 50% of the budget is funded from debt.
So-
That's what it was last year, last time I
So
looked.
Mr. Manziano, I'm not gonna tell you to go to the website, okay? So.
Thank you. I mean, now I'm getting that.
So, the total operating budget for the school district, using $1 as the basis, is 92 or 93 cents comes from local taxpayers, okay? The other 7 cents comes from federal aid and state aid and some other small amounts of money. So we have debt service
Right.
included in the annual operating budget. That debt service, that debt was generated by a referendum back in 2002, something like that, when we expanded all the schools in the district. Different schools at different times, I don't remember the exact dates. So, as you know, when you float debt, public debt, you issue a bond and you just keep paying your bond off, and over the next 4 or 5 years, I think we will completely retire the debt that the school owes. So, just in terms of overall finances, that's how the school budget is formed and operated. The percentage of, I believe, the local taxes that come into the schools, and Kyle will keep me honest on this, I think is about 65%. So now I'm not familiar with the townships.
That's what I'm looking at, because again, I'm looking at the overall website. I'm seeing an overall town financing of about 50%. 50% debt and finance, okay? And I'm certainly not holding to that number.
Right.
But the notion that you guys are capped at absolutely unable to offer anything more than the equivalent of a 2% increase sounds specious to me.
I understand, I mean, we've had that question before, but.
Particularly on the salary side. I mean, maybe on the overall school budget you can't do
Yeah, so think of
that.
it this way, so that's an excellent way to think about it. So if you, I think last year, when we had a 2% increase, that means we generated new funds of something like 1.2 or 1.25 million, okay? Then the question is, what do you do with that 1.225 million? And almost 100% of it goes to the staff in terms of picking up the pay raise. And your number's roughly right on the 700,000. I mean, you're not that far off, I don't remember the exact number, it depends on the percentage. And the balance of that typically goes to picking up the increase in the healthcare premium that we have to absorb. That's the increase though, not the total, right? So your numbers are roughly right. So the way we look at that is if we can raise your taxes by 2%, so we pick up the 1.2 million, and we've immediately spent that 1.2 million in two very appropriate places, right? Staff, and picking up the change in the healthcare premium.
So you're increasing salaries by 2% now this year?
Well, so hold that thought. So the amount of the raise, like last year's raise was, an expiring agreement, it was 2.7,
Okay.
right? So you take your 2.7 off the total base pay associated with the operating unit at the time.
Okay.
So that number is then eats up a portion of the 1.2 million that you're generating from taxes.
I hear you.
So what Mr. Gallo has said multiple times is sooner or later, and you're there already, as you're an economist, I could see the graph working, you've got this increasing slope of expenses, you've got a flat 2% number, and you've got another number underneath that in healthcare that's spiking even more vertically. So it's on us, every year we do the budget, to say what things may potentially go down or could be offset. And the budget process that takes place, and Kyle just produced the 17 calendar for us, and we can share it with you, all happens in public. So there's like 6 or 7 meetings that take place where, I'm saying that to you because I don't want you to think that the website is going to give you some answer about the budget process, because it's kind of a pain in the ass, and it isn't all that much fun.
Right.
But we literally start with, so what's the student population, what are the needs, what are the class sizes, what's the professional environment, and so forth. Where are we going to save a little? Where are we going to see an increase? Investments that we've made in facilities over the last 10 years on things, for example, like boilers, which is really boring. Totally get it, ain't sexy.
Well, I don't think investing in teacher salaries, I don't find that sexy either, but.
Okay, but my point is this, those more efficient things like windows and boilers and so forth have reduced our utilities costs, and they leave us operating flexibility to pay more than the 2% tax cap.
Which I think is what the other woman was suggesting, that out of the capital budget, what's your discounted present value of your overall capital budget over the next 3 years?
I don't know what discount value we're using, and I don't know if the auditors even run that, because it sits there as cash.
Yeah, but you got 6 million. If you only have a bogey of about 2.5 million, I think their point is well taken. Originally, I didn't want to go there because capital's capital and salary's a salary, but you could solve this thing and just take it out of there, can't you?
Right, so I think.
Why not?
Well, I can't take money out of.
This guy's shaking his head, why not?
You can't, once you put money in capital reserve,
It's got to sit there forever?
Right, yeah, so it can only be used for
Consider that
capital
before
budgets.
putting it in.
Okay, but they did, they can't do anything about it.
Right, so.
Alright, so you gotta find a way.
Right, so we think the way, right, is we've offered a raise, which is, again, in our view, right in line with other high-performing districts, and we consider this district high-performing.
Right.
The pinch point is, and has been, healthcare premiums.
Right.
And we think the rough distribution, the 78-22, is reasonable.
Right.
We think it's reasonable. Now.
I wouldn't disagree with you personally.
Okay, so but here's the challenge, and we've had these conversations internally a few times and here in public as well. We get that the world changed. That up until 4 years ago, healthcare premiums were not something that people had a tremendous amount of exposure to. Okay, and there's been this increasing slope because of the phase-in, right? And we fully understand that it's negotiable. Okay. And we've been trying to come up with the right solution. And it's about as much as I can say, because if I go further than that, I get admonished by other people for quote-unquote negotiating in public, so I don't want to do that, because then I upset people, I don't want to upset anybody.
Right, well, an overall 3% then, in your opinion, has the 3% without any change in the healthcare benefits been rejected by the teacher population, the union?
So I can't comment on what has been proposed or
Okay,
or
guys,
rejected.
if you did that, I disagree. Okay? All right, I don't care whether I can comment, I'm paying for all this stuff, okay? I'm the taxpayer, I'll comment on anything I want, you can't censor me, okay? So 3% is reasonable, guys, you should take it, okay? 3% is reasonable, you know what? All across the country,
Okay,
all across the
do
country,
you have
we're
another
paying less.
question?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hello, Andy Buchel, Vice President of the MEA. First, I don't know if you know, one of the parents in town, can you all hear me back there with this? One of the parents in town came up with this idea to show support for the teachers, and I know you all have expressed verbal support for us, so the MEA purchased for each of you a car magnet supporting our teachers. couple things. Just corrections that I feel like need to be pointed out. It's not a hard cap, it's a soft cap of 2%. It's a revenue increase cap. Also, in terms of the pay, where we rank, the New Jersey Department of Education has Mahwah teacher pay at 107th in the state. This, of course, in contrast to our U.S. News and World ranking of 32 in the state. But that's not what I wanted to ask a question about. At the last meeting I was at, which was the day before school started, the August 31st board meeting, and forgive me if you covered this in the September 14th meeting. I went to see if there were minutes available, but there weren't, and I wasn't there at that meeting. But I had asked about if the board was concerned about the loss of staff, particularly last year, but over the last few years, we've had a number of staff departures, and for all sorts of reasons, non-tenured staff not getting hired back and going on to similarly high-performing districts, and staff members going on to admin positions. But I was specifically focused on the teachers at the Ridge, the members at the Ridge, the 5 of them who left for lateral positions. And colleagues of mine told me afterwards that it was also teachers at the high school, teachers at JK, again, making lateral moves out of Mahwah to other similarly high-performing and, by the way, higher-paying districts. And so I had expressed that the MAA was very concerned about this trend, and Mrs. Barron, you had said you were similarly concerned. And so I had asked Mr. Fair about what was going to be happening, moving forward to try and correct this problem. And you had said you were working on it. And so I just wanted to follow up, now that we're a month into school, if you could kind of elaborate on what's been going on and how we're, as a district, correcting this problem of staff departures.
In terms of the process, I know that, sorry. Can you hear me? No? No?
Chuck, can I have your mic, please?
Can we use capital reserve money to fix it?
We've been working on an exit interview process. So, remember the last time we talked, I think it was 2 meetings ago, where I said there are a lot of shades of gray, and a big piece of that is sitting down and having that conversation. We've been talking about having an exit interview process.
Great.
We're working on that.
Okay.
That I can assure you and promise you will take place.
Okay, so that's certainly encouraging. Hopefully we don't have to have too many of those exit interviews.
Well, no,
so how are we going to prevent those
so.
exit interviews? How are we going to improve the conditions? There was an article in the Patch a couple weeks ago. It cited a study that ranked Mahwah as the 93rd best place to work for teachers in the state. And again, that's a far way off from the 32nd best school in terms of quality rankings. And so, we look at all these factors, and this is that data that we are always talking about. So how are we improving those conditions? Obviously, I assume the negotiations teams are working on, correcting the problem that we've had, 450 days now without a contract, 4th year in the last 6 without a contract. But, beyond that, what is the administration doing to kind of improve
Andy, you're there every day. Why don't you share with us the things that you think need to be addressed? Because you're well aware that the contract is trying to address the 2 major pay packages.
I can hear you, but if you want to speak into the microphone so everyone else can hear, Mr. Shelby.
Our administration is constantly working on morale. From supervisors to assistant principals to principals. From my perspective, I hear laughter, but from my perspective, I feel as an administrative team, we're working on morale. We're doing the best that we can to do the best for you guys and for the kids.
Great. Do you want to elaborate?
As a supervisor, I know how the supervisors work. I know they work really hard to make sure that your job is as seamless as possible, that instruction is going better and better every single day. I don't really know. I don't know exactly how to elaborate.
I guess, yeah, just the climate of the district. Do you think it's a quality place right now? Do you think the climate is good?
The morale obviously isn't as great as it should be.
Right, so how do we improve that? That's my question.
It's a difficult
I
question.
think it's something that both sides have to work on.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's not going to be just us.
I agree,
It's not
and
gonna be just you.
Yeah, and frankly, eventually, hopefully, this contract's going to be settled, and I think we're going to have to figure out a way to kind of improve things around here.
And I would
because-
hope that the teachers, if there are issues in the district that are bothering you, that are causing morale problems aside from the contract, that you would let administration know what they are,
Okay.
okay? Thank you.
What else do
Mr.
you need?
Saldrini? I'm sorry?
I mean, you're there every day, so what
Yeah.
ideas do you have? I mean, you're well aware that obviously we're trying to address both the compensation and the healthcare benefits, right? And to pretend that we're not trying to address that is disingenuous. So
I
what are
don't know
your
that I
suggestions?
was pretending to
Well,
not
you're
address
suggesting
that.
that we're ignoring morale issues associated with compensation. I think that's disingenuous. So what are your
Do
suggestions?
you recognize the correlation between 4 years and 6 not having a contract and low morale?
I recognize that you feel that the contract process has been protracted and that you feel that that's happened in multiple contract reviews. I also think it's important for you to realize that that's a two-way street, okay? And this idea that somehow it's
No, wait.
exclusively something that we're doing or we're trying to in some way erode or impede morale is just disingenuous. It's not accurate. It's not true.
I'm
We are
asking you, do you
offered-
see a correlation between?
I answered your question. I said we do see
No.
a correlation.
Oh, okay.
And that's why we've put the offer on the table that we've put on the table. You have not found it to be acceptable yet. So we're trying to work through an acceptable offer.
Well, I'm not on the negotiations team, as you're
Yeah,
well
I
aware.
know.
But are you,
You just show up.
actually, are you aware that, and this just happened today, so I'm not sure if you are, but Ridgewood district we, I think, compare ourselves to, just settled a contract and reduced the percentages on health benefits.
So understood they had a memorandum of understanding, had not seen the specifics, so obviously that's something that is worth paying attention to. What pay raise did they get for the reduction in the healthcare?
I'm not sure what the pay raise were.
2.7.
There you go.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's exactly in line with where we are, is it not?
Plus a percentage in.
9% reduction in healthcare.
Okay, 9% reduction, okay, good to know.
Okay, so maybe we can use that information moving forward.
Well, I think one of the things that Rick's been saying for a while is the fact finder reports, and Ridgewood had come through a fact finding episode, are potentially informative.
Great, so I guess we're waiting for that report.
That's what we said at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay,
All right.
thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you, Andy.
Evelyn Slockow, 43 Thunderhead Place. Just theoretically, on the budget for employee benefits, it was overstated by a specific amount. I'm not sure, I was trying to get that amount from Kyle because, they said it was only 7 or 8% versus the 16% increase that was shown on the budget. Theoretically, couldn't that difference have been used to decrease the cost of the benefits to the teachers since it was already accounted for in that line item? It was already slated for employee benefits.
As far as making a unilateral decision during the course of a contract year to say there is excess funds because of a overstatement, as you suggest, and to unilaterally make a decision that could go back to the teachers is not something that can be done during a contract year because the amount that the employees contribute is overridden by what the Chapter 78 contribution is. Right now, the contract states, the contract that everybody is working under, the expired one as of June 30th, 2015.
Well, it's expired, so technically, can't you
It's still in
override
place.
that because it's
It's still
really
in place,
expired?
and that contract references that the contribution is by whatever Chapter 78 law states that it is.
But from my understanding is there's a sliding scale of the contribution, so they do
Yes.
not have to give in the 4% max, correct?
The 4%
I
max or
think
the
it
tier
was that,
4?
or tier 4, excuse me,
Yeah,
tier 4.
It was a sliding scale, and it was something that gradually came in, teachers first started contributing.
So it's not a set amount, so
Pardon
we could have contributed more to the benefits because it's not an amount set in stone.
It is an
correct?
amount set in stone, because the current contract follows that the Chapter 78 contribution matrix, the contribution rate that's stipulated by it, is what the employees contribute.
Well, could you have created a policy to override that?
That could be discussed during negotiations.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. I would like a motion to adjourn. Mr. D'Angelo and Mr. Gallo, second. Thank you all for coming.